ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, stress-free ride. President Gotabaya inaugurates the pilot park and ride project as a possible new solution to traffic congestion. Day of reckoning. Supreme Court to hear Easter attack fundamental rights cases naming former President Sirisena, the ex-Defence Secretary and the ex-IGP in March. A silver lining. The CAC named the second best performing global equity market as State Minister Kabral explains rupee slump and positivity.
In the year 2020, even in the midst of this pandemic, the rupee's depreciation was only 2.6%. With the new law for the port city big table shortly in Parliament, we would see a spurt of new investment coming into the country.
Conditional release. The Colombo Chief Magistrate releases ETI directors on conditional bail, citing lack of evidence of their evading court. All this and much more coming up on this Friday, the 15th of January 2021.
ඇල්කොහොල් අඩංගු hand sanitizer භාවිත කරන්න. ලෙඩ රෝග ඇති කරනු විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරන්න. හඳුන්වා දීමේ මිල රුපියල් 350යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I am Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. The pilot park and ride project was inaugurated by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today as a solution to the ever-growing traffic congestion in and around Colombo. People travelling to Colombo in their private vehicles now have the opportunity of parking at a designated parking lot and utilising a new luxury bus service to get to their workplaces. The number of private vehicles entering the Colombo metropolis on a daily basis has increased steadily over the past decade. With that, the resultant increased traffic congestion at peak times has led to serious inconvenience to the millions of workers commuting daily. Despite the implementing of measures such as strict lane rules and bus priority lanes to resolve the issue, authorities are of the opinion that the only solution must be a reduction in vehicle numbers entering the city. With that, the new park and ride system launched today by the State Ministry of Vehicle Regulation and Bus Transport Services and the Sri Lanka Transport Board may possibly offer some respite from what has become a grueling daily work commute. In the new program, office workers travelling into the city using their private vehicles can now leave them at specially designated parking areas set up by the SLTB and hitch a ride on a luxury city bus into Colombo.
බස් රථ මිනිත්තු 10න් 10ට අපි මෙතනින් පිටත් කරන්න සැලසුම් කරලා තියෙනවා. කොළඹ නගරයේ ස්ථාන 5ක වාහන ගාල් කිරීමේ පහසුකමක් පවතිනවා. මාකුඹුර ඊළඟට තලංගම ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගමනාගමන මණ්ඩලයේ ඩිපුව බැස්ටියන් මාවතේ පෞද්ගලික බස් රථ අංගණය ඒ වගේම රිචඩ් පීරිස් ආයතනයේ ඉදිරිපිට 138 මාර්ගයේ නුගේගොඩත් අපි ස්ථානයක් සකස් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඔවුන්ට පුළුවන් ඔවුන්ගේ වාහනවල පැමිණලා ඒ ස්ථානවල ගාල් කරලා සිටි බස් සේවාව පාවිච්චි කරන්නට හැකියාව පවතිනවා. ඉදිරියේදී ගාලු පාර 120 පිළියන්දල පාර මීගමුව පාර සහ නුවර පාර හරහා මේ බස් රථ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
The pilot project was inaugurated at Kottava this morning by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who also launched a mobile application for this service as well. Through the application, passengers can both track the buses using GPS technology and also view a head count of passengers travelling in the buses. The President, along with a team of officials including the subject minister and the state minister, tried out the new city bus following the launch. The city bus service currently operates from the Makumbra Multimodal Transport Centre in Kottava along two routes. One of the routes will run from Kottava to Petta via high-level road and on its return through the technical junction Rajagiriya Palavatta and then onto the Makumbra Transport Centre of Pannipitiya. The second route will take passengers from Kottava to Golface Green and will pass Nugegoda on the high-level road, Narahempita through the Navala Road and will stop at Javatta, Torrington, Town Hall and Union Place as well as the Lotus Road roundabout. From Golface Green, the city bus will travel past Kolpeti and Tummulla Junction through High Level Road and head back to Court Tower. With bus fares for the service set at double the normal rates, city bus passengers can also enjoy free Wi-Fi on board. The city bus service is expected to operate 64 turns per day from Court Tower and will only pick up passengers from a limited number of bus stops.
නගරේ බොහොමයක් ස්ථානවල අපි මේ වගේ වාහන නැවතුම් පොළවල් හදලා තියෙනවා. ඒ සඳහා මුල් කාලේදී අපි මුදල් අය කරන්නේ නැහැ. ආරක්ෂාව සපයනවා අපේ ළඟම ආරක්ෂක සේවයේ නිලධාරී. මේවා සම්පූර්ණයෙන් දිනපතා විස බීජහරණය කරනවා. උණ බලන යන්ත්‍රය වගේ මේ සැනිටයිසර් වගේ දේවල් බස් රථයේ තුල පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඒ නිසා බයකින් සැකයකින් තොර මේ නව බස් රථ සේවාව පාවිච්චි කරන්න කියලා අපි ආරාධනා කරනවා.
Pay just 500,000 rupees to reserve your unit today. Mulberry Residence.
The Supreme Court today set the dates for the hearing of 12 fundamental rights petitions that have been filed, naming former President Maithripala Sirisena and several others as respondents, citing their failure to prevent the Easter Sunday terror attack despite possession of sufficient intelligence information. Accordingly, the petitions will be heard by a 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court on March 8th, 9th and 10th.
Up to now, 12 fundamental rights petitions have been filed in the Supreme Court over the inability of top government officials to prevent the Easter Sunday attacks, despite having sufficient prior intelligence warnings in their possession. The 12 petitioners include the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and several Catholic clergymen. Named as respondents in the petitions are former President Maithripala Sirisena in his capacity as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando and former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara. As such, the preliminary hearings of the petitions were taken up today before a 7-judge Supreme Court bench consisting of Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya and Justices Bhuvanika Aluvihare, Sisira Diabru, Priyantha Jayawardena, LTB Dahidenia, Murudu Fernando and Preeti Padman Surasena. At the commencement of proceedings today, Attorney Harsha Fernando, appearing on behalf of former Chief of Defence Staff Admiral Ravindra Vijay Gunaratna and former Navy Commander Admiral P.L. De Silva, who were also named as respondents in the petitions, informed the bench that the duo will no longer be represented by the Attorney General. Further, in response to a request made by Attorney Harsha Fernando, the bench granted permission for the filing of objections to the petitions by the former Chief of Defence Staff and the former Navy Chief before February 15th. Meanwhile, both the petitioners and respondents were also ordered to hand over their written submissions on or before February 24th.
The Colombo Chief Magistrate today granted bail to the former directors of ETI Finance Limited on cash bail of 1 million rupees and 5 million sureties each. The 4 ex-directors of the failed company were arrested last Friday over charges of financial fraud, criminal misappropriation, criminal breach of trust and money laundering. The suspects did not appear in court today due to being in quarantine. Former directors of ETI Finance Limited and Swarna Mahal Financial Services Jeevaka Edirisinghe, Nalaka Edirisinghe, Asanka Edirisinghe and Deepa Edirisinghe were arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department on the 8th of this month on charges of financial fraud, criminal misappropriation, criminal breach of trust and money laundering. With that, when the case was called today, the court was expected to rule on the bail application filed by the suspects. However, the suspects did not appear in court due to being in quarantine. Delivering the verdict on the bail application, Colombo Chief Magistrate Mohammad Mihar ruled that the prosecution had failed to substantiate allegations of the suspects having evaded court hearings, their attempts to flee the country, and of having exerted pressure on witnesses. Highlighting that a presidential commission inquired into the matter, the magistrate stated that no witnesses were found to have been influenced by the suspects. Considering the submissions, the Chief Magistrate informed court that the prosecution had not provided sufficient reason to deny the suspects bail and release them on a cash bail of 1 million rupees along with 5 million rupee sureties each. The magistrate also banned the 4 suspects from travelling abroad and ordered them to appear before the CID on the last Sunday of every month. Meanwhile, ETI and Swarna Mahal Financial Services depositors staged a silent protest in front of the courts today. More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In more news, Chief Epidemiologist Dr. Sudat Samaravira urged the public to cooperate with authorities in the PCR and rapid antigen testing process in order to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Meanwhile, police media spokesperson DIG AdaDerana stated that around 450 institutions have been found to have violated the prescribed health and safety guidelines and promised legal action soon.
320 more COVID-19 infections were reported today and 670 yesterday. The Colombo district reported the majority of the infections yesterday of 214. The Gampa district yesterday confirmed the second highest number of infections with 116, while 90 infections were identified from Kandy, 52 from Kegol, 37 from Kalutara and 30 from Gaul. The remaining 247 COVID-19 infections were identified from 16 other districts. In the meantime, the country confirmed 4 COVID-19 related deaths yesterday. Meanwhile, from the 250 COVID-19 deaths reported so far, the majority have been reported from the Colombo district with 160. The remaining COVID-19 deaths were from patients from 11 other districts. In addition, 5 prison inmates and 1 person whose identity could not be verified are also included in the figure. Meanwhile, PCR tests carried out on 15 members of parliament have come back negative for the coronavirus. A total of 463 individuals at the Parliament complex, including Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abewardana and 15 MPs, were subjected to PCR tests. In the meantime, Dr. Sudat Samaravira says that a total of 1.4 million PCR tests have been conducted so far and highlighted on the increasing non-cooperation of the testing process from members of the public.
We have done in our country PCR testing more than 1.4 million, and this is including the private sector, universities and the government sector laboratories. Yesterday itself more than 14,000 PCR tests has been done in all these laboratories. The PCR testing is one of the important testing to identify COVID-19. In addition to that, we are using rapid antigen test to identify COVID-19 patients. We can see that in some instances that people are reluctant to come forward, cooperate with us to do PCR testing or rapid antigen testing. It is very important to do this test to identify COVID-19 patients. If we can identify the patients early, we can isolate them in order to not to spread the disease to others. And also we can identify the first contacts and we can quarantine them and identify any cases among them. So with these measures, we will be able to control COVID-19 in our country. For that, the support and the cooperation from all the sectors of the people is very much essential.
In another development, police media spokesperson DIG AdaDerana says that legal action will be taken against institutions found to be in violation of the health and safety protocols.
එමෙන්ම තවදුරටත් විශේෂ මෙහෙයුම අද දිනේදී ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. බස්නාහිර පළාතේ පිහිටි කාර්යාල ඒ වගේම සේවා සපයන ස්ථාන පරීක්ෂා කිරීම සිදු කරනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම පසුගිය දින දෙක කාලය තුල එවැනි ආකාරයේ පරීක්ෂා කිරීම සිදු කර 450කට ආසන්න ආයතන සංඛ්‍යාවක් සොයාගනු ලැබුවා. අදාළ ගැසට් පත්‍රයට අනුගතව කටයුතු නොකරන බව ඔවුන්ට ඉදිරියේදී නඩු පැවරීමට කටයුතු කරනු ලබනවා.
Meanwhile, a total of 512 patients recovered from the COVID-19 virus today.
Despite warning members of the public to refrain from gathering in large groups for private celebrations during the recent festival season, the Government Medical Officers Association doesn't seem to be sticking to its own advice. The president of the GMOA, Dr. Padania, has been placed in self-isolation along with his family after hosting a private gathering at his residence of up to 20 guests, one of which turned out to be COVID-19 positive.
A doctor who was a guest at a private gathering held at GMOA President Dr. Padania's residence has tested positive for COVID-19. The infected doctor is reportedly currently under medical care at the Infectious Diseases Hospital. According to reports, close to 20 guests in total from 3 families had gathered at the GMOA President's residence. With that, Dr. Padania was identified as a close contact of the doctor in question, along with his family and other guests. Further, following the doctor's identification as COVID-19 positive, the public health inspector in charge of the area of Dr. Padania's residence had visited his home to inform him of the self-quarantine order, but the GMOA president was not home at the time. At that time, Dr. Padania had reportedly travelled to Derana. Commenting on the matter today, Dr. Padania said he is currently home quarantining at the moment. He is expected to be referred to a PCR test tomorrow.
The Colombo Crimes Division was able to seize a whole of 18 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine, or more commonly known as ice, packed on board a bus in the Kosgoda area. As such, police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana says that the narcotics have been sent either from Pakistan or from another country by a suspect identified as Lati, who was also involved in the shooting incident in Kalutara in 2017.
The Colombo Crimes Division had seized 18 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine that was being transported in a luxury bus during the early hours of the day today. The bus was travelling from Galle to Colombo. The Colombo Crimes Division had received intelligence on the narcotics operation a few days before. As such, the Kosgoda police searched the bus in question at around 5:20 am today and discovered the haul of drugs packed in parcels weighing 1 kilogram each. The police stated that while the bus was being searched, the driver of the bus, a resident of Homagama, had attempted to escape.
විදේශ රටකින් ගහපු මුද්‍රාවකුත් එක්ක තමයි මේ ජයවරක්කම මේක කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මුද්‍රාවක් හැම එකේම සටහන් කරලා එවලා තියෙනවා. අපි ඒ ගැනත් හොයාගෙන යනවා. අරාබි භාෂාවෙන් තමයි මේ මුද්‍රාව තියෙන්නේ. රියදුරාට උපදෙස් ලබා දී තිබෙන්නේ දකුණු ප්‍රදේශයේ ස්ථාන කීපයකට ගමන් කරන ලෙසට ඒ අනුව ප්‍රථමයෙන්ම හික්කඩුව ප්‍රදේශයට ඉන්පසුව නැවත දැනුම් දී තිබෙනවා කොස්ගොඩ ප්‍රදේශයට පැමිණ ලෙසට. මොහු ප්‍රකාශ කරන ආකාරයට කොස්ගොඩ ප්‍රදේශයේදී මේ බස් රථයට මේ මද්‍රව්‍ය තොගය ලබා දී තිබෙනවා. මෙය අයිස් වර්ගයේ කෘත්‍රිම මද්‍රව්‍යයක් හැටියට තමයි සැලකෙන්නේ. ඉන්පසු එයාට රැගෙන කොළඹ ප්‍රදේශයට ධාවනය වන අවස්ථාවේදී කොළඹ අපරාධ කොට්ටාශයේ නිලධාරීන් විසින් මේ මද්‍රව්‍ය තොගය අත්අඩංගුවටගෙන තිබෙනවා. මේ ජාවාරම් පිටුපස් සිටින ප්‍රධාන පුද්ගලයා ලැටි නැමැති පුද්ගලයෙක්. මොහු හේරත් මුදියන්සේලාගේ අසන්ත කුමාර හේරත් නැමැති පුද්ගලයෙක් 2017 කළුතර එතනමඩල ප්‍රදේශයේදී බන්ධනාගාර නිලධාරීන් දෙදෙනෙකු ඇතුළු සැකකරුවන් 5 දෙනෙක් ඝාතනය කිරීමේ සිද්ධියේ සැකකරුවෙක් බවටයි වාර්තා වෙන්නේ. දැනට මේ ලැටි නැමැති පුද්ගලයා පාකිස්තානයේ හෝ වෙනත් රටකින් මේ මද්‍රව්‍ය ලැබෙන්නට ඇතැයි දැනට තිබෙන විමර්ශන වලින් අනාවරණය වී තිබෙනවා. මේ සැකකරු ගැන ජාත්‍යන්තර වශයෙන් නිවේදන නිකුත් වී තිබෙනවා. ඒ අනුව මේ සැකකරු සම්බන්ධයෙන් තවදුරටත් විමර්ශන සිදු කරනවා. මෙහි වටිනාකම රුපියල් කෝටි 18කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් වෙනවා.
The Air Dog unit at the Sri Lanka Air Force Base in Katunayaka organised a passing out parade for 20 air dogs earlier this week. The air dogs and their handlers received special training from the Sri Lanka Police Canal Division in Askeria and the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board in the detection of dangerous substances, including explosives and narcotics.
A passing out parade was held for the newly inducted air dogs of the Sri Lanka Air Force Base in Katunayaka. The 20 air dogs who passed out were recruited into the Air Force last year from the Netherlands. Established on the 23rd of August 1972, the SLAF Air Dog Unit has a long history of service to the nation. The Air Dog Unit was designated as the 40th Regiment Wing in 2012 and was redesignated as the Air Dog Wing in early 2013. Commanded by Wing Commander Niroshan Kumarasinghe, the SLAF Air Dog Unit is actively involved in airfield defence operations, search operations at all international airports of the country, search and rescue operations during situations of natural calamities, and explosive and narcotic detection operations. The air dogs comprise of 5 Belgian Malinois, 5 Labrador Retrievers, 5 German Shepherds, and 5 English Springer Spaniels. They are specially trained as sniffer dogs in detecting narcotic substances and will be deployed at international airports. The air dogs and their handlers were specially trained with joint support and expertise of the Sri Lanka Police Canal Division in Askeria and the National Dangerous Drugs Control Board.
We'll return after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In your business news, the trade deficit for the month of November has narrowed by $198 million to $565 million year on year. Earnings from exports have declined by 16.3% to $819 million in November 2020 year on year, which accounts for 3.4% monthly decline.
The central bank's external sector report shows a narrowing of the deficit in the trade account in November 2020 by $198 million to $565 million from $762 million recorded in November 2019. Further, the cumulative deficit in the trade account from January to November 2020 narrowed to $5.416 billion from a deficit of $7.213 billion recorded in the same period in 2019. The report also showed an improvement of 0.6% in the ratio of export prices to import prices in November 2020 compared to the previous year. Meanwhile, earnings from exports showed a year-on-year decline by 16.3% to $819 million in November 2020 and a 3.4% monthly decline. Further, earnings from the export of industrial goods declined by 19.6% in November 2020 year-on-year, mainly due to the 37.2% decline in garment exports. However, exports of gems, diamonds and jewelry, rubber products and plastics recorded an increase. In addition, export earnings from agricultural goods declined by 2.3% in November 2020 year-on-year due to a reduction in seafood, minor agricultural products and tea exports. Earnings from tea exports meanwhile declined by 5.2% due to low export volumes of black and green tea, while unit prices of both types marginally increased. Spices, led by cinnamon and pepper, and coconut, mainly coconut oil and non-kernel products, and rubber recorded increases. With that, the export volume index showed a 7.9% decline, while the unit value index declined by 9.1% year-on-year in November 2020. This indicated that the decline in export earnings was caused by lower volumes and lower prices.
State Minister Ajit Niwad Cabral says that the depreciation of the rupee at its current stage should not be as alarming when compared to pre-2019 levels of up to 6.7% per annum. The State Minister added that the depreciation of 2.6% is a positive sign given that global challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, the Colombo Stock Exchange is being reported as the second best performing equity market in the world by Bloomberg.
The main index of the Colombo Stock Exchange, the All-Share Price Index, has been ranked the second best performing stock index in the world as of January 13, 2021, with a positive price return of 9.88%, according to Bloomberg data. In a Twitter message, State Minister for Money, Capital Markets and Public Enterprises Reform Ajit Niwad Cabral expressed his pleasure at the Bloomberg report that called the Colombo Stock Exchange the second best performing equity market in the world, and added that he is truly humbled by the confidence displayed by investors in the Sri Lankan economy. With that, the State Minister held a press conference today where he touched on the depreciation of the rupee and expressed confidence of a surge in positivity once the laws for the International Financial Centre at the port city are tabled in Parliament and enacted.
We all observed that during the Yahapalan regime, each year the rupee's depreciation was a massive 6.7% per annum, even without having any major crisis in the world. However, we found that in the year 2020, even in the midst of this pandemic, that the rupee's depreciation was only 2.6%. So that shows that with the careful management of the economy, we were able to limit the depreciation of the rupee substantially and thereby make the entirety of the economy a lot stable than what it was. At the same time, we also find that the interest rates were carefully managed, and today the interest rates are such that most businesses are able to manage their businesses much better, and the non-performing loans have also come down substantially. So here again, the careful management of the macro fundamentals through careful taxation, revenue measures, stimuli packages that we have introduced, we have been able to bring stability to the economy by way of a stable rupee, stable interest rates, which will now spur new investment to come into this country. Already we have seen some big top investors of the world coming to Sri Lanka to take up positions, and we believe that very soon we would see some real substantial investments flowing into the country. We have also already seen some of the investments bearing fruit, particularly in the Hambantota industrial zone, as well as the International Financial Centre in the port city. And with the new law for the port city being tabled shortly in Parliament, we would see another spurt of new investment coming into the country, which would make it possible for Sri Lanka to grow at the levels that we had only experienced during the period prior to 2015. We have already seen the confidence levels in the economy moving up quite substantially. The stock exchange performance has been a reflection of this confidence, and the fact that the Bloomberg has listed Sri Lanka as the second best performing stock exchange in the world in the year 2020 is a reflection of that acceptance that Sri Lanka is now moving towards a stable destination of trust and confidence.
The all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange gained 291.34 points today, marking the highest daily points gain in its history. The index closed at 7,734.57 points, the highest since February 28, 2011, gaining 3.91% from the previous day. Meanwhile, the S&P SL 20 index closed at 2,902.98 points today, with a gain of 120.81 points, or 4.34%. Turnover for the day was 12.46 billion rupees, while it also set a new record for the most trades in a day with 60,818. And now here's today's market report.
CSE witnessed a high day gain on the 13th consecutive day surge while the recording a massive 12 billion plus turnover. And market witnessed a continuous uptrend since the beginning of the session and recording its intraday high of 7,762 before closing at 7,735, gaining 291 points. The capital goods sector led by the turnover for the session, closely followed by the material and food and beverage sector, making a joint contribution of 57% of turnover. The main turnover drivers are Expo Lanka 1.9 billion, Brown Investment 1.3 billion, and LOLC Holding 1.16 billion. And activity mainly centered on Brown Investment, Expo Lanka, and Primal Glass. And moreover, the parcel trades accounting 10% of the turnover for the session. Today we witnessed a net foreign outflow of 178 million. The foreign buyings we saw from Commercial Bank and Brown Investment, and foreign selling we saw in John Keells and HNB non-voting.
The rupee was quoted around 193 to 194 to the US dollar today, amid excess liquidity in money markets and low rates which had inverted forward premiums. The rupee closed at 193 rupees and 75 cents to 194 rupees and 75 cents on Wednesday. Here's a look at how the rupee traded against other currencies during the day. With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a good night.